I'm a first generation kid of immigrant parents. My grandfather was one of the first settlers here in Chinatown. He came at the end of the Qing dynasty, old imperial China, in 1901. And he had a hand laundry where he just cleaned shirts and uniforms of sailors and the shirts of business people and the like, and on the backside of Beacon Hill. When my dad was 16, he was sent back to China to marry my mother. They stayed married the entire time after that. I think when over 65 years or something of marriage. So here I am, native Bostonian, as all-American as hot dogs and the Red Sox. I was raised in a Christian family, so we grew up going to church, and I can't picture a time where we didn't pray or read the Bible or things like that. So it's all been a part of my growing up. We started in Dorchester in a triple-decker, and at that point, the demographics were wildly different. There were no Asians, very few Asians in all of Boston. I'd come home, my mother would speak to me in Chinese, we used chopsticks, we would eat Chinese food. My friends had, used forks and were more Western. I wanted to be like them, so it was tough. I didn't like being Asian or Chinese, and it took me a long time to come to peace with that, because that difference was not a positive distinction for me. And a lot of my young adult life was trying to make sense of that cultural background and how God could use that for good and not for ill, because it always felt not so good. Over time, I began to see His sovereign foundations in that being brought up biculturally. I think I have a sensitivity to other cultures because I had to. It was a survival thing here in this country, and I think it's helped me as I cross cultures now and listen and learn and just pick up vibes. And as I look back, I think of the privileges I've had with both the exposure to multiple cultures, to travel I've had an experience, to gift of education and opportunities. And I've always felt like life is about stewarding those privileges and being responsible because I've received those gifts. I know they're gifts. So I ended up going to Taiwan for a year on a fellowship program and continuing studying Chinese language and culture. It's like a 1-year master's kind of thingy. And while I was there, folks started writing me and inviting me to consider joining InterVarsity staff. And then 30 years later, I was still working with students with InterVarsity. And through my time with Ivy, we started working with Asian American students who are like me, second generation people, parents who immigrated, but you feel caught between worlds. I think like Moses did, because he was Hebrew, but he was Egyptian, and yet he was a blend of both. And I think a lot of us feel that same mix of cultures inside of us, and you don't know how to make sense of it. And Moses had to figure out what that was. Was he a Hebrew or was he an Egyptian? God didn't waste this kind of family background. I mean, it took a while to make sense of it, to make peace. I mean, I've gone to counselors, I've had to spend time praying, lamenting. I've gone through depression. I've gone through a lot of things to help make sense of it. So it hasn't been like, oh, hey, I'm Chinese American, can't wait. I think, again, because of being in between cultures, I think I understand kingdom citizenship in a whole different way. It's just not an academic thing for me. It's meaningful. And I think it's given me a sensitivity to people from other cultures. And I notice folk who are left out. I notice folk who are on the margins. There's, in a lot of the Bible, there's lots of stories of journey and pilgrimage. And the final destination, right, is when we're reunited with God in a heavenly realm somewhere, when His kingdom is established. And I think the journey that my folks were on, and to come to America, the whole thing, and their journey to kind of make it in this country and then to pass on opportunities to us. And I think there's a lot of places where it's a reminder that the final destination isn't what you have today, but still ahead. And you're still taking steps towards what's ahead. I just am a firm believer that God doesn't make any mistakes, that He put us into our families and our homes, families of origins, with all their strengths and weaknesses, purposefully. It's not a mistake that we're there. God loved you enough to bring you into your family. And let's think about what that means for you today and for your future.